We're going to move on now to associations, the role of associations. For those of you that have been in the crypto, blockchain, Web3, metaverse, whatever you want to call it, ecosystem, the quality of the association is always the most important. The quality, not quantity. Dr. Token from Thomas Nägele, Nägele Law, is someone that I refer to as one of the industry experts of quality associations. He will be on one of the panels. Last year, he was one of my speakers in Monaco at our Forbes Monaco event. And now, let's bring up our moderator, Tracy, to talk to the rest of the team about the role of associations. And I hope everyone will get that one takeaway, that one aha moment. Let's bring her up now. Tracy, join us up.
All right, I'll give us a moment to take our assigned seats. Thank you so much for leaving the lovely networking upstairs and joining us for the next 30 minutes. I'll try to make sure that I'm conscious of everyone's time. So I have, instead of three lovely gentlemen next to me as we take a closer look at the role of associations, and no better qualified than the three gentlemen right here. I'm joined, of course, by Dr. Thomas Nägele, President of the Crypto Country Association, and, of course, one of your lovely hosts for this day, as well as Ricardo Simoes. He's the Executive Director of INATBA. This is the International Association for Trusted Blockchain Applications. And a familiar face to, I'm sure, many of you, Sheraz Ahmed. He's the co-executive director of the Crypto Valley Association and managing partner at Storm Partners. Thank you to all three of you for joining us. So to kick things off, I think it makes sense to get sort of an initial introduction from each of you. So we'd be curious to know, how do you define your association's mission within the larger blockchain or digital asset ecosystem? Sheraz, I'd like to start with you.
Fantastic. Tracy, thank you so much. And Thomas, thank you for organizing such an amazing conference here
It's not
today.
only me, it's the team. It's an association. We are like, feel like 100 of people helping us. So.
Yes. Oh, I know. Yeah, exactly how it feels. I mean, the Crypto Valley Association has been around now. I think it's one of the oldest associations out there. I mean, the mission, how we defined it, is really to kind of, as you lift the rising tides and you lift all those boats, we really try to be able to be supportive in this space, to be able to connect individuals together, entrepreneurs, also large corporates, governments, and do whatever we can to support the Web3 space in moving forward. And if that means supporting other associations as well, we're always happy to do so.
All right. Ricardo?
So again, Thomas, thank you very much for having us. So my name is and congratulations for this wonderful event. My name is Ricardo Simoes. I'm Executive Director of INATBA, International Association for Trusted Blockchain Applications. INATBA is a highly influential, fast-growing association a global association of companies, public bodies, and academics. We aim to pave the road for positive adoption of blockchain and DLT technologies. And we are doing so by providing a platform for producing thought leadership content to provide to regulators, policymakers. But we also want to converge the various stakeholders into a sustainable industry growth. And promoting and liaising the use cases in different topics like digital identity, finance, sustainability, and promoting as well education. I heard a lot people spoke about education. INATBA is a part of the Chase Consortium, Skills for Europe, and the European Union Pacts for Skills. And last but not least, but we are trying to also contribute to facilitate the onboarding of non-blockchain companies into the ecosystem.
All right, and last but not least, Thomas, tell us about the CCA.
I think the most important thing that the CCA recently did is actually this event. I think that's obvious. But that's a part, and I think I said it in my speech in the morning, that is really one of the crucial roles of associations, to provide venue for networking, to provide venue that people can actually exchange thoughts, right? That you network. And we have always a very collaborative approach, right, between associations. So we are very good friend with the CCA association in Switzerland. I'm, for example, a board member of INATBA as well as Sebastian, who sits in the front row here. So INATBA is also very well represented here. Now we have Jan Kleser, who is just entering the venue, also a board member of INATBA. And you see how important it is actually is to, if you want to build up an ecosystem and if you want to have a voice for this industry, and we need a voice. My best example is when we started in Liechtenstein to think about regulation, right? It was actually pretty clear that sooner or later, if we want to be successful, we have to have some counterparty for the government, for the regulator, to get actually as neutral as possible voice of the industry. And a very simple example, right? If one company has a problem with one regulatory challenge, right? They can try to solve the problem themselves, right? But if it's a problem like all of the other companies have, you can, as an association, you can bundle that, right? And then approach neutrally the regulator and say, like, we're representing the industry, and our members told us, like, this is the problem, this is the problem, this is the problem, right? And it's not a problem only one company has. So it's actually our role as well to represent the industry ahead of, in front of the regulator, in front of the government, right? And I think to provide venue, to provide these networking opportunities, and to represent the industry, that's the main role of the CCA in Liechtenstein.
Excellent, thank you so much for sharing. So taking a closer look at what it means to represent this industry, I think we would all agree that it's been a very tumultuous past 12 months with some triumphs, some challenges as well, some reputational issues maybe in certain sectors of the industry in particular. And I think there was a lot of concern, particularly on the government side, when it comes to bad actors in the space. So as Thomas Reid once famously wrote, a chain is no stronger than its weakest link. So I would be curious to know, is there a vetting process in place for your association members? And if yes, what criteria do you use to determine access? Now, INATBA, of course, is the word trust already embedded in the title, so I'd love to start with you, Ricardo.
So it depends on what we think of weakest link. If we are talking about ill-intended actors, of course, INATBA has a due diligence process to understand better how the member, how the prospect is working and the intentions. And a little bit about the role of the association is also that to create the first filter in terms of adding that company into a trusted space where we can advance the discussions. But if we are talking about maturity, if we are talking the weakest link in terms of maturity, I would say no, because we at INATBA, we welcome as well companies that are startups that are looking for the opportunity to connect, to learn, and to expose themselves into network possibilities and to fundraising as well.
Sheraz?
Yeah, so I think, like, being a Swiss association, we have a very Swiss approach to doing things. We have terms and conditions and guidelines that every member, when they want to join the association, they accept. We try to find the most cost-efficient way of doing things as well, so not having someone go over it, but being like, okay, like, these are the guidelines, this is what you need to respect. We have 6 board members that then review whenever they have the opportunity to review, okay, does this company follow the guidelines or not? And then essentially, we kind of like have this premise of, if you're not following the guidelines, well, you should actually know the guidelines and read them, and then we can kind of expulse the person if there's a need to. I mean, to be very honest with you, we don't necessarily have that doesn't occur very often, that there are these kind of, like, let's say, ill-doers, as you were mentioning before, kind of like joining the association. I think, if they're trying to join a non-profit, they're trying to get involved, trying to participate. And I think it's also the element of our members that do come together, and then they will kind of tell us, hey, this person was interacting in this way, could you please look at that? So we have this kind of like, I guess, self-surveillance as well that happens within the association, and everyone tries to take care of each other as well. So I think, yeah, bouncing on what Thomas said, this big like family approach as well, where we try to help each other out, and everyone tries to grow the ecosystem together.
So I say there's a big self-governance component, you could say.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Thomas, you're the lawyer in the group. What does the process look like for the CCA?
Oh, it's actually very simple. You just join. It's an association, so you join for sure based on the process. But in the end, no, we don't have any filter at all. There's not that you for sure you have to be accepted, and right that's going to be done formally once a year. But you can join throughout the year. But in the end, I mean, the Liechtenstein ecosystem, and we consider it actually as like the Liechtenstein, Swiss, Austrian, as the Swiss too, right? It's like one big ecosystem in the heart of Europe. I mean, you know each other, right? And if, as you said, Sheraz, if something happens, right, people will tell you. And specifically in this really small ecosystems, I mean, in comparison, right, it's very easy to have like some kind of governance, and you just take the fun. That's actually the beauty of having a small country and a small ecosystem in the end, right? You can basically like know everybody, and that's the same in Switzerland. I mean, the players, we know all of them. It's like family and friends, right? If we go to the CVC events in Zug, right, which are actually basically which are amazing, but it's family and friends, right? You see a lot of faces, you know, and if someone really is not acting properly, yeah, we would be aware.
Tend to find out. Nothing, you can't hide anything in the family. This is very true. Now, you mentioned actually, sort of as part of your opening statement when you talked about the Crypto Country Association, that one of your main activities is to serve as an intersection between the industry and government. Mm-hmm. How do you go about facilitating such interactions?
That's, again, very easy in Liechtenstein because our government is extremely approachable. And that's not only for associations, so for every company actually, you can basically get a meeting with the government agencies within days, and they're very approachable. Same is true for the Financial Market Authority, our regulator, right? But I think what is key is that, coming back again to the question, if you approach them as an individual or as a company, for sure you have certain interests, right? And these interests might be very focused on your company alone. And normally a government, for sure, what they have to care about is that it's actually suitable for the whole like jurisdiction. So if we approach them, we always try to find like an approach where we say, okay, does this really make sense for all of our members or the majority of our members? And I think a continuous dialogue with the regulator is crucial, and you have to build up some kind of trust, right? That's coming back again to the trust question, because, for example, if we would actually risk that relationship with the government if we are not a reliable partner, right? Again, that would be like very, very fast, that would be over, right? So I think that is how we can do that in Liechtenstein, because it is really easy, but it starts with doing good things. So we started the first time ever where we acted as the CCA in front of the government was alongside the process when our proposal for the Token Act, like the blockchain law, the TVTG, was in Parliament, right? So we approached the Parliament and said, like, if you have any questions, we are more than happy to come to you. You can ask us, like we did, ask me anything, right? So like whatever you want to know, we try to be as open as possible. We have nothing to hide, right? Our goal is to give you as transparent as possible information. And I think then you build up this relationship. You build this relationship based on trust. Like for example, we had the same thing with the travel rule, right? We had an issue with the travel rule. We called the regulator. Then you sit together on a table, and because you have this relationship, it's very easy. It's comparatively easy to find solution. Not that the challenge is easy to solve, but at least to start the dialogue is easy.
So you say that process is facilitated by the fact that you are an association and thus represent sort of a collective interest versus that of an individual company. Sheraz, of course, the CVA is also quite active. on that front. What does that interaction look like for you guys?
So if I kind of summarize as well, like from the Crypto Valley Association's perspective, like how we run the organization, as it's run mainly based on volunteers, a metaphor is kind of like being a gym, right? In terms of like, you can buy your membership to the gym and you can like wave it around and be like, yeah, I have a gym membership, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to work out there. And so we do have, some corporates that prefer to like buy the membership and be like, yes, we have a gym membership, but maybe don't use it as actively. But we do have members that come to the gym, they use it, they use our working groups, our events, come to our conference and these various bits and pieces. So when it comes to government's involvement there, we have a lot of delegations, a lot of like ambassadors that come and they contact us, and then we're more than happy to welcome them in the Crypto Valley, into get involved our partners at CV Labs, get involved everyone in the ecosystem, try to organize, kind of like showing them around. It's essentially kind of similar to what you're doing as well, but it really is kind of, we don't necessarily go out and reach out to them. It's really, okay, we're here to support and develop the ecosystem when they need it and when they're ready maybe to come to us. And so that's a little bit like, how we help them.
You dropped the term working groups. How do those work within the CVA?
So the working groups, depending on, let's say, the niche that is of trending at the moment, we have 2 new working groups on ESG, so sustainability, and 1 on startups. And then the others revolve around kind of regulation, investor working groups, education, etc. And they work with a chair and a co-chair, which are normally the most active members and that want to take the lead and organize. Again, they operate as volunteers. They actually even buy their own membership. We don't even subsidize that because we believe that every vote within the association needs to kind of, let's say, be everyone is equal to that extent. And so they run on the basis of the most active members are there as the co-chairs. They meet up every week, every 2 weeks, depending on how the working groups are governed. We do leave to a certain extent a decent amount of independency there. Like they can operate it to a certain extent the way they want with a certain structure, and then they get involved. They do reports, their own webinars, etc. And we kind of, let's say, as the infrastructure around it, help them organize those events, do the different things, enable them to do what they want to do, and then operate it from there. So it's always great because we have every week new members that come and like, yes, we'd like to get involved here, we'd like to organize this, etc. And we just try to facilitate that energy and bring it further.
Now, Ricardo, for INATBA, you of course also have quite a few government interactions, which I can see may be a source of frustration in some instances. How does it work with you guys?
No, it's a little bit more complex because INATBA is an initiative of the European Commission. We have 170 members, diverse members, and global ones. So in terms of regulators, we have this unique international platform that is our GAB, Governmental Advisory Body, that gathers regulators, governments, and supranational organizations like the UN, like the World Trade Organization, and 42 others. We have working streams on the side of this advisory body, this governmental advisory body, and we have industrial working groups aligned with the topics that the governmental advisory body is dealing with. So we have on identity, on an SSI, self-sovereign identities, and we align was used to say the demand and the supply, but it's not the case. But we align the positions, the different positions, the requests, the expectations of the public sector with what can be provided by the industry. And that combination is complex, as I said, to align all those interests. But it forces the good discussion. I heard today Joaquin from DG Growth saying we have to build bridges, and a way to do that and to balance the opportunity that is more a focal angle from the industry and risks that are more a concern of regulators. INATBA is pushing INATP is pushing for the right balance, to strike the right balance between those opportunities and those risks. So yeah.
It's quite a bit of tightrope walking happening over there. I like the phrase that you use now when it comes to building bridges, right? And I'd like to take a closer look at the bridges that you think still need to be built. So what would you say remains sort of a key challenge in fostering blockchain-friendly regulatory environment, both in sort of the jurisdictions where you're active, but on a global level as well? And what are you specifically doing to address this issue? Let's start with you, Thomas.
I think in Liechtenstein, the most critical challenge we have at the moment from a regulatory perspective is to identify what will change in Liechtenstein with the upcoming MiCA regulation. Because we attracted businesses in Liechtenstein based on the TVTG, which is a local law, right? It's only applicable in Liechtenstein. And what we're going to have then is the same level playing field in all of Europe. And there's a possibility that you can actually have your local registration transformed to a European-wide license. And so first of all, we have to address and see how and if we have to change our local law, right? Because like some of these service providers, they are actually obsolete because they are regulated on a European level, and this is applicable in Liechtenstein because we are a member of the EEA. So these regulatory changes are one of the bigger challenges actually at the moment. I think here again, it's just this, it's the same challenge we have for years. It's such at a fast pace, right? Whatever you do, like when you do it, you write a report, you do something, most of the time it's already old, right? So to keep that up to speed with the dialogue with the regulator, that the regulator is able to keep up with all of that, the government is able to keep up with all of that, the advisors, right? Like we get a lot of questions from others, like how can we do this and that? So it's actually just, it feels like sometimes if you are like 3 days out of office and you don't have your mobile on, like you completely lost track, right? It's just this fast speed that everything is actually developing. And the biggest regulatory challenge for us, I think, is really this MiCA and how we can deal with it from a Liechtenstein perspective. I think it's a huge opportunity, but we have to do it properly. And I think we're on a good way with the approach so far, but yeah, hopefully it will turn out well.
Ricardo, an EU perspective?
So I would agree with Thomas. Keeping up with this very, very fast pace is one of the challenges. I would say as well that from our perspective is, and what our members expect us to do as well, is to keep up with regulation that isn't specifically directed into the blockchain space, but where blockchain technology could be a good fit. And I'm thinking specifically on traceability of SEGs, for instance. And I think there's so many focus, and the focus this year, and it's still going on in terms of the finance, that we sometimes forget that blockchain has different applications and has a tremendous potential in other areas. And I'm glad and I'm proud that INATP is covering as well that diversity of topics. So it's keeping up with the fast pace. It's also trying for the regulators, for government, for political side as well, not to be distracted by some narrative on the public space that sometimes is superficial and is misleading on the potential and the opportunities that blockchain technology offers. I would say this would be the biggest challenge. Is afterwards, I heard yesterday in the discussion we were talking about DeFi and regulating DeFi can be done, should be done.
Maybe you can share. There was an event which was not open to the public, so it was a government initiative.
It's a private discussion.
Yeah, it was a private discussion. just that people know it happened alongside this CCA event. So
Yes, and it was actually because I don't want to take the credit of it that one of our board members suggested that in 1 year, Thomas would invite us again to be here and to provide a self-regulatory framework for DeFi. And that's a huge challenge, and but it's the kind of ones that INATBA likes, and with the help of its growing community and its members.
Excellent. We've heard on a country level, we've heard sort of on a larger EU level. Of course, CVA is a global organization. Sheraz, any insights on sort of the global challenges when it comes to the regulatory environment?
Yeah, so I'm not a lawyer, so I'll try and take like a more like macro perspective of things. Having been in this space for the past 7 years, I would say I haven't really like slept so much during that time, and I haven't really taken a holiday. So I would say the one thing that is maybe like our challenges is that everybody in this room in the Web3 space, we have like 1 million ideas a second. And then, we don't sleep at night, so we can, from a software perspective, maybe like develop that out. But then like from like a real world perspective, like who are these crazy people that are like developing all these crazy things? So I think from like our side, maybe to allow things to go ahead further, we can connect more to that traditional world by just being a bit more chill, kind of being like, okay, thinking about ideas maybe in those kind of private events whereby we can be crazy behind doors, and then kind of once we have a consolidated idea of, okay, these things are maybe real use like cases, then we can go out with them into the public and be like, okay, we thought of this idea now, instead of like presenting them 1 million different ideas and then people getting overwhelmed. Because I think that's often what happens, is blockchain technology is one that, it's a dual-edged sword, but it's a bit agnostic in terms of it can be used in so many different industries, so many different use cases, that people are like, oh, like, is this a currency now? Can this be used to track supply chain? What is blockchain? And so I think if we're able to, chill a little bit more, take a little bit of time, sleep a little bit more, go on holiday a bit more often, and let people digest what we're doing, I think things would go a lot faster.
I think that most people in this space, if you rest for half a day, you're like, no, I have to do something. I have to do something. Like, a lot of people like David who just loved, actually, we sat together at a coffee and was like, we had a relaxing moment, right? And then said, let's do a barbecue, right? And like 10 minutes later, we organized a barbecue, and it was happening like a week later. And everybody's like, this really was happening now? And I think like most people in that space, because if you constantly have to keep up with that space, I mean, I would, like people who know me really well, right? I'm extremely fast and bored, right? So like, I don't know if you, Sheraz, I know you now quite a bit. Like, if you are on a holidays for 1 week, come on, you want to do something big, right?
Yes, very true. I mean, yeah, we're definitely our own.
I don't want to kill your argument, but like, I don't like.
Maybe other people can stop us. I mean, we definitely are our own worst enemies sometimes, which is good thing. Yeah.
I think that's actually a good thing, right? I mean, that we are so much of energy in that space. There's so much energy in that space. That's what I really love about that industry.
It's certainly an innovation-first mindset, I would say. But perhaps we also collectively have ADHD that could also. Of course, again, coming back to sort of the overarching topics of associations, I'd like to close it out with sort of a general look at how the industry as a whole is working or not working as a unified body. You're all associations, you have a lot of different members and a lot of different interests that you represent at the end of the day, a lot of different voices and subsectors that you have to bring together in order to sort of push forward. Would you say that in its current state, the industry is operating as a unified body, working towards sort of a common goal? If yes, what evidence do you see that this is the case? If no, what evidence do you see that it's not the case? Ricardo, I'll start with you.
I think with the long run, the goal we are pretty much aligned with. We understand that making the ecosystem grow will benefit all of us. In the short term, perhaps. They're still fragmented in terms of approaches. but I start to see some action there. I joined INATBA 4 months ago, and
And
I
it
have
feels like decades
yeah,
already,
it feels
right?
a little
Yeah, I
bit.
told you.
No, and I have like a pile of MOUs with associations to look it through. What I think that we shouldn't be doing only MOUs or connecting our partnership only for the sake of showing it. We have to understand where our strengths are, and look for a partnership that has complementary strengths. And that way, of course, we could move faster, perhaps cheaper, and perhaps greener.
Sheraz?
Fantastic. Yeah, so I think as an industry, there's always things that we can do better. We can improve our communication, etc. But we're operating all over the world simultaneously. I mean, we were just talking about the DevCon in Bogota, right? I mean, it's like, how do you think about what's happening there, get the same info, and then it's really like a distributed network. But I think if you compare it to other industries, I definitely believe that we are quite well connected, synergize as well, and working to do, let's say, build in the same wavelength. And I think we're friends on stage and off stage, whereas maybe in other industries there's a decent amount of kind of fake kind of attitude or atmosphere. And I think we're all really trying to build this together. And I do believe that stems a little bit from all the skeptics that they were maybe 5, 7, 8 years ago, where we had to band together. And now to a certain extent we still feel that kind of camaraderie together, where we're like, okay, together we can do better, because ultimately over the past 10 years we have been able to make this industry something where now governments are getting involved. They are not just being like, okay, who are those crypto nerds? They're like, wow, this can really help everybody. And so over those past 10 years together we have done so much, and I think together we will do so much more.
Thomas, I see a lot of nodding in agreement.
I will be very short. Yes, for sure, we achieved a lot of things already, but we have to do more. And that was actually the sign. I don't know if you recognize that, but that's a chain of, it's a blockchain with 2 hands. And that was the idea, right, to connect to each other. And that was yes, we were achieving a lot of things, but we have to do way more. And that's for us the starting point to say, let's get in touch with each other and work on something together. That was the whole idea of the conference.
Well, thank you guys so much. I think everyone's taken collectively a big step already by joining us here for the day. Thanks to the three of you for joining me on stage and for the wonderful discussion. If anyone is interested in talking to you about the CCA, about INATBA, or about the CVA, I assume they are free to approach you throughout the day, so seize the moment and the opportunity, and please find them once they're off stage. Thank you all for listening and being kindly attentive, and we look forward to seeing you upstairs in the networking area. Thank you.